So I am obviously not coming to you from my offices, but I am instead in Fort Greene, Brooklyn, where I live on the ancestral lands of the Munsee, Lenape, and Canarsie people. I obviously, like you, would much rather be out and about, listening to concerts, and also working from my office. But unfortunately, we are all still in this situation, but hopefully a vaccine is in all of our arms soon. Until then, though, it's my pleasure to be here talking to you a lot about digital media. So a bit about me before we jump into the presentation. So I am the CEO of VinePair. VinePair is the largest lifestyle publication about wine, beer, and spirits in America. So you might be asking, what does he have to do with talking to us about building audiences? We did build a very large audience for that publication, obviously, but I have a background in classical music and jazz. I started my career at the Brooklyn Philharmonic and helped build the audiences there, and have a real passion for classical music, jazz, and all sorts of indie rock, etc. So it's really always been an honor for me to come back and talk about what's happening in digital and how you can use the tools that are occurring right now in digital to help find your audiences, build your audiences, and be able to create careers for yourselves outside of just the traditional performance space. Getting to know your digital audiences, right? So that's what this entire presentation is going to be about today, is how we interact with our digital audiences in order to build audiences for ourselves. So the first thing that we need to understand when we think about an audience is we need to understand that an audience is all about data, right? So data is the fundamental building block that allows us to understand our audiences. Without data, we can't make informed decisions about who the audience is, what they're looking for, how they're trying to interact with us, right? So when we think about understanding our audience, we need to understand what we're going to be looking at. And what we're going to be looking at is a bunch of different kinds of data that help us make conclusions about who we're performing for or who is listening to our music, right? So this is a simple piece of data, right, that you can look at in terms of people that watch The Handmaid's Tale, right? So when Hulu put out, this is who is listening, who is watching this show on Hulu, right? You have people who are sort of self-identifying as in certain kinds of areas, right? They're feminists, they're students, they're writers, they're the resistance, they're music lovers, right? And it allows Hulu to understand who they're speaking to when they're coming out with their marketing messages and when the show is actually, being watched live, right? So this is an example of what data would look like when we're talking about understanding an audience. So that's great, right? That's great that we understand that now we're going to have to look at data, but we have to also talk about how we actually capture that data. And each platform has different ways to capture data, right? Everything that you would encounter online has a different way in which you can capture, understand, and analyze your data. Now, some of them are much more advanced than others, right? Facebook has very advanced data analytics that we'll look at in a second. Instagram, much more basic. TikTok, which I can't wait to get to, almost none at all, right? So every single platform that you're going to potentially encounter will have different ways for you to look at and analyze data, and you're going to have to take different strategies in order to analyze that data and make those decisions and really understand your audience. So the first way to capture data is very basic, right? And that's a survey. But while I'm saying it's very basic, it's probably the most important. And I would encourage you on every single platform you are on to think about using surveys, right? Surveys actually let you ask the questions you want to know, right? So as opposed to Facebook, which we'll look at in a minute, which might show you the breakdown between male and female and age group and where they live, this can actually allow you to ask specific questions. Why did you actually, watch my live performance? Or how many live performances of our group have you watched in the last 6 months? What was your favorite performance? What type of music do you listen to in addition to the type of music that we perform, right? And again, it allows you to better understand who they are and what they are looking for. That then helps in the future when you want to potentially talk to partners, right? So let's say maybe you want to do a co-presentation where you're going to perform and someone else with a larger audience might also perform, right, on a live or in the future in person, right? You can say, well, here's the background of our audience, here's the background of our audience, so therefore we can bring our audiences together and both grow. It also helps you better understand whether they might be willing to buy a physical album from you, whether they might be willing to buy t-shirts, whether they might be willing to buy any other sort of paraphernalia, right? That obviously helps, you know, us continue to be artists in the future. So those are the things that are really important when it comes to surveys. And so I would encourage you throughout whatever platform you're on to think about surveys. They're not hard to put together. You have to ask, you know, basically you need to ask the questions you want to know with a set of answers. And there's a lot of pieces of software you can use that are very intuitive. So when it comes to survey software, there's really only two. There's Google Forms and there's SurveyMonkey. Both of them have free accounts that you can set up, right? So unless you're on an enterprise model, unless you're a large arts presenting organization, right? Unless you're a BAM, where I spent, like I said, the beginning of my career, you can easily use the free software available to you on SurveyMonkey or Google Forms in order to create surveys. And it's very drag and drop, right? So again, you might say, well, what's the point? Like, I'm not sure I have enough time to do this, but this is where you're going to get that really amazing data that's going to allow you to truly understand who the people are that are listening to your music. So when it comes to a survey, right, you're saying, well, Adam, like, what questions do I ask? Well, so you're going to ask two sets, right? The first is demographics, right? So you do want to know who the people are just demographically. How old are they? You know, how do they identify? What's their level of income? What's their level of education? Again, this is really important because it allows you to be able to then make connections with other people who may have similar audiences or different audiences. So like, let's say that maybe you find that your audience is very heavily baby boomer, and there's someone else who's making music whose audience is very heavily millennial, and they'd like to have more of a baby boomer audience, and you'd like to have more of a millennial audience. So you can do a live concert together where you perform and you promote it to your audience, and they perform and they promote to their audience, and you both are sort of getting a cross benefit of seeing each other online, right? So that's why you sort of want to know these this information. Some of them obviously are very different, right? These are traditional demographic questions that are asked by marketers across the country. So you would pick and choose what you think would be important to you to know, what would be important to other arts presenters to know, right? But age, income, education, that's all very, very basic demographic segmentation. And you'll see this also broken down when we look at social platforms. It's the bare minimum information that people might ask, right? And again, this is something that you can do across all of your different channels. You can promote the survey to your audience on Facebook. You can promote the survey to your audience on Instagram to allow you to have the data yourself. The other thing you want to ask is psychographics, right? So psychographics are really important when it comes to understanding what their interests are, you know, what their behaviors are, what their values are, right? So we can ask questions here that really get to the heart of who the audience is, right? So how important is jazz to you? Or what style of jazz do you like? What other performers do you like? What other artists do you listen to, right? These are really interesting questions to ask that help you really understand, oh, okay, cool. So my audience really, you know, I have a large majority of my audience that really only listens to music like the kind of music I perform, right? Or you might find that a majority of your audience, for a majority of your audience, you're the only performance group, person, presenter, et cetera, that they listen to in this genre. And then they might prefer instead, you know, on the other side, lots of classic rock, right? So that's always really interesting to hear as well as you start to learn who the audience is. And again, this then helps you make a lot of decisions about what you might present to them, you know, who you might partner with, et cetera, in the future. Before I move on, I'm just gonna see if there's any questions. So Gail asks, how best is it to deliver request people to fill out surveys? So Gail, there's a lot of ways we're going to talk about. The best way, which I'm about to get to, is direct email. Email is the only thing you own when it comes to being a presenter, and we're going to talk about why I'm so bullish on email in a second. But yes, you would take a link that SurveyMonkey would create for you, or that you would have through Google Forms, and you would post that link on a bunch of different platforms where you have a following, right? So you might do it if you have an Instagram following. Let's say that throughout the pandemic, you've been going live a lot on Instagram, and you've seen your follower count grow and grow and grow and grow on Instagram. Then you might do a specific post on Instagram where you say, hey, to all my followers, really appreciate it. Like, would love for you to tell me a little bit more about yourself. Please go to this link. You put it as a link in your bio on Instagram. You might, when you go live the next time, hold up a sign with the link, right? So all these different ways to get them to go to your bio. To go to this link and answer the survey. And then building on that information, what someone else has just asked is, what's the success rate? So the success rate is all built on incentivization, right? So no one takes a survey just to take a survey. They basically take a survey when they are incentivized, right? So, and there's a lot of ways to incentivize them, whether it's, hey, if you complete the survey, you're entered in, a drawing to win a free album that we've cut. You're entered into win 2 free tickets to our next live performance when this is all over. All of those things are ways to incentivize them. Could even be, hey, you're incentivized to have a 5-minute, Zoom with me, where you can ask me questions about my music. Those are ways to incentivize them. But incentivization is really important to getting people to complete the survey. And that's how you really can ensure that you have a success rate. And then, SurveyMonkey will show you how confident you can be in your results. But I like to say, depending on your size, you want to be at least 100 people taking the survey. Now, if you only have 100 people following you on Instagram, that's obviously not going to be an accurate sample size. But if you have a few thousand people who follow you, or who attend a lot of your your performances, then 100 people taking the survey is a pretty good representation of your audience. So, Margaret led me straight into email marketing. So there's a few email marketing platforms to use. I really encourage you to use the email marketing platform, even if you're an individual presenter. And that's for one really main reason, which is you don't want to wind up in anyone's spam filter. So it always sort of drives me crazy when I meet with an author or an artist, and I see that what they've done in order to get to have an email list is they're literally just BCCing everyone in Gmail, right? So they have a list of a few thousand people. They may keep it in an Excel document or somewhere else, and they're just copying and pasting that list, and they're putting it in Gmail, and they're mass blasting. That sends off so many spam filters, and it's highly likely that by doing it that way, people aren't receiving communications from you, or the people you think are receiving your communications aren't, right? So it's really important to go with an email marketing platform. And of those platforms, there's 4. But in my mind, for what most people here are doing, there's 1, right? And that's Mailchimp. And that's because Mailchimp is the easiest to use. And it has the most sort of easy to understand analytics, right? So it'll show you how many sends you had, how many people opened it, how many people forwarded it. And it's the cheapest for the size that most people here would be. So that's why I really like Mailchimp a lot. Obviously, if you're a larger organization, there are more enterprise solutions for you. But for the most part, Mailchimp will work the best for most people. And so I would encourage you, if you do not have an email list, to have an email list. And if you have built an email list and you are not on Mailchimp, to think about switching over to Mailchimp. I promise I'm not a paid spokesman. I just think, again, for people's size, it's the most it's the most intuitive. And what I also really like about Mailchimp is that they have very high quality servers that ensure that the majority of your emails do go to someone's actual inbox. But there are some tools with email that you need to think about. One of those tools is that a lot of people use Gmail now. So when you first start sending them emails, you want to ask them to move your email to the primary inbox. That's a very easy, ask at the top of your email saying, hey, thank you so much for signing up. Please reminder to make sure you see everything from me that you move me to your primary inbox, as opposed to, the promotions inbox or the social folder that sort of Gmail automatically creates for most people. And then the other thing is you don't want to email too much, right? I think what's really interesting about email that people need to be aware of is that email just isn't just about transactions. So you should not be emailing people just to tell them about what you are, just ask them to attend something that you are doing, right? Or just to sell them something. That doesn't work as email marketing. So email should also be about updates, right? So email can be you sending them an amazing article you read, or in a weekly update, right? So let's say you decide that you're going to email all the people on your email list every Wednesday, right? So then on certain Wednesdays, you may have nothing that you're doing. There may be no Facebook Lives, there may be no Instagram Lives, there may be nothing that you did on TikTok this week. So you can say, hey, read this really amazing article about music in my genre. I think you should check it out. You could also say, hey, here are 2 other performers that I plan on watching in the next week. Want to pass this along to you because I think you will like them because I love them, right? So it allows you to build a much more personal relationship with people that doesn't feel transactional. So that's the biggest thing that people get wrong with email is they see it only as a sales tool. And when you only see it as a sales tool, it causes less people to interact with you, right? So now on to social platforms. The first one, Instagram. So this is the platform that even recently is really mostly about vibes. So Instagram truly is a platform that is there to really give people an idea of who you are in a much more surface level way, if that makes sense, right? It's like sharing images and that are really beautiful and sharing photos of yourself in the studio or at a performance or rehearsals. Like that's really what Instagram is at this point in time. And Instagram is, a platform that recently has also been something where you can go live on it. But it is a platform that is strongest, has basically, you build an audience mostly by sharing beautiful images that people want to interact with and sharing information. I think that there are certain, organizations that do this really well. Jazz at Lincoln Center does this very well with their Instagram platform. So I think, the way that they sort of share amazing times in jazz history, albums they love, and they encourage comments, right? That's what people love to do on Instagram, whether it's in the stories or it's in the feed and what we call the posts, right? Sort of trying to engage with the audience. Tell me, when was the first time you heard Bitches Brew? What did you think about the album, right? Getting the audience to comment back and have a conversation with you, and having someone who either is on your staff or you as the artist are commenting back as well and responding. That's what's really important. We're going to talk about that a lot in the next 20 minutes when we come to social media. But all of these platforms, even YouTube, there's a reason we call it social before media, right? It's about being social. It's about being interactive. It's about having a conversation. So it is not enough in any of these platforms to just go live, to just post, and then to not have a conversation back and forth with your listeners, with your viewers. So if you do choose to go live on Instagram, right, it's really important that once you've gone live, right, you are having a comment with people who are chatting and leaving you, are saying things to you. And that's actually what we're going to get to, how you learn a lot about your audience. But again, here's just some more examples I really like of what Jazz at Lincoln Center does, right? So they share amazing imagery. They remind people of times past. They talk about, so in the top one right there, they're showing you a scene from the road. This is obviously prior to the pandemic, but then they're also using it to tease the rest of the tour, right? To do a subtle advertisement, but it engages with their audience in a really nice way. So on Instagram, you can't learn a lot from their own analytics, right? And you can only see Instagram insights if you have a business account profile. So this is where social media can be really annoying, right? If you're a person and you don't have a business profile on Instagram, you can't see any of these analytics. So that's where, again, the survey that I talked about in the beginning is so important. If you do have a business profile, then you can go to your profile page and there is an analytics tab that you can click on that will show you this. But it's very, very basic, right? It shows you the average age range of your followers, where they might live or where Instagram thinks they live based on IP address, when they're most active on Instagram, and what their gender breakdown is based on what Instagram thinks it knows about them, based on what they've told the platform, right? But that's really what you can learn on Instagram. And so what would you use this for? Well, the biggest thing that I would use Instagram for is this analytics, if I had access to this, is to reinforce a few things. First, are the people following me from the area that I am located in, especially if, we're going to get through this pandemic, and in 6 to 9 months, we're going to be back at live, with live music, which I can't wait for. That's like I want to be at a packed concert really badly. And so this can help reinforce, are the people who actually are following us on Instagram actually in our city where we perform the most, or where we have a presentation hall, et cetera? Is their age demographic in the age demographic people who seem to buy a lot of tickets from us or who we perform for? That's what these, I would say, top 2 ideas would be for. What's interesting on the follower side for a business account about when they're active is this should tell you when to go live, right? So if you see on a Thursday, the people who follow you are often on the platform most often on the platform from 6 to 10 p.m., then that's when you should think about going live if you were going to do a live performance on Instagram, right? If they're most active at 11 a.m., then you should think about going live at 11 a.m., right? And then maybe make that something that's habitual that you do quite often. That's where this is really useful to you, it's giving you data that you don't just have to guess at, right? Like, I'm going to try going live at 5. Didn't get a lot of viewers there. I'm going to try 6, now 7, right? This can very clearly say to you, oh, wow, my most active, my users are most active at 9 p.m. So maybe I should have my concert at 9 p.m., right? Because when someone goes live on Instagram, the only way that that you gain people that just don't remember that you're doing that, because obviously, hopefully you have sort of promoted that a little bit in your stories and on your feed, they see that bubble come up in, at the top of Instagram that says someone is live and it's blinking green. So you want that to be blinking green when the majority of people who follow you are on the platform, if that makes sense. Is boosting worth it on all of the platforms? It depends on your size. If you're a large arts organization, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to. That's why email is like amazing. The more emails you can capture, the better, because you control that audience. On any of these platforms, they're not actually your audience, right? So you can get locked out of it whenever you want. An algorithm can change. That's what can happen. And so that's why it's really important that you try to capture as many emails as possible, because then those are names you actually own. So boosting is worth it if you're a large presenter, just because, even if you have, let's say you're BAM and you have a few 100,000 followers on Instagram and Facebook or whatever, those platforms aren't going to show your post to all of those followers. So you are going to have to pay, even though they're your followers, to make sure that all of them see what you're trying to promote. And then boosting is worth it. But when you are an individual solo presenter, I wouldn't waste your money doing that. I would post and hope that the majority of the people who were intended to see your post, if that makes sense. I hope I answered your question. Okay, let's run through Facebook. So Facebook's all about keeping people informed. It's also about going live now. There's a bunch of different ways to go live on Facebook. You can either go through their platform, or you could also, like I mentioned earlier, you could use a platform like Zoom, where you use the webinar feature that we're actually on right now. Then you can actually connect that feature directly to Facebook. So you could be using like Zoom's features, but actually be on Facebook going live. So you could, share slides or whatever that Facebook wouldn't let you do normally. You would have to pay to do something like that. But Facebook is a lot about keeping people informed. It's sending updates. It's sending links to things, you may be reading, or where you've been written up as an artist. It's where people can sort of follow all the stuff about you. And Facebook, obviously, as we all know, makes it really easy to link out to, publications and things like that might have covered you. When you are on Facebook and you're looking at your page, you should see a tab up here called Insights, right? And this is where you can then see everything you need to see about your audience. So when we go into Insights, you see very similarly to what you would see when you are on Instagram, but it's a little bit more robust, right? You obviously see the breakdown of, your fans, women versus, male versus female, their average age, the cities that they're located in, all that stuff. But then you can also see, the demographic breakdowns of who's actually engaged in certain things. And I think engagement is really important. So you may have a bunch of people that liked your page or liked you as an artist, but then, they may not be the same people who are engaging with every single post, right? So when you go up to that top tab and you can click on people who've engaged, you can sort of see then, who's actually engaging with the kind of information we're putting out. Is it, a really nice mix of our entire page's demographics, or is it, one demographic group that seems to really be responding to every single thing we're posting on the page? So I'm going to admit this. I don't use YouTube that much. It's just not a platform that we use at VinePair. Being a publication about, a lifestyle publication about travel and drinks and breweries, bars, etc. We don't use YouTube all that much. If we are going to do video, we mostly do video on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. So YouTube is one of the platforms that I can't give you as much information about. I will say there is an amazing thing you should watch if you do use YouTube, and that is, this is the link, right? You should go to the Creator Academy and watch these videos where it can really help you understand your analytics and your audience. YouTube is great in terms of finding new people. But again, it's not a platform I use that often, but I obviously would be remiss if I didn't talk about it. I think what YouTube is really great about is, again, being able to go live and give performances and play your music and things like that. But again, it's just not an analytics platform that I use that often. So now the platform that I'm kind of like the most excited about right now, especially for artists, which is TikTok. So TikTok, basically, prior to really the pandemic, was seen very much as a platform for teens and preteens, right? It wasn't something that anyone really messed around with. People were wondering if it would really ever be that big. I'm actually on record at a conference last year in the beverage industry being like, oh yeah, like I think TikTok's not going to be a big thing, and like we're not going to use it at VinePair. Obviously now we have one, but the pandemic changed everything. One of the biggest reasons the pandemic changed everything was traditionally on social media, what you would hear a lot, especially when it came to video, was that you should never really worry about having video with sound, that everything should be subtitled. If you guys are familiar with watching videos that obviously aren't music, but that were cooking videos, things like that on Facebook, Instagram, et cetera, pre-pandemic, which seems like so long ago, right? I think you'll remember seeing there was all these subtitles on videos, right? Even on like the news videos from brands like Now This and stuff like that, right? It's because people didn't watch videos on their phones with sound. We were taking the subway to work. We were in elevators. We were at our desks, and we wanted to like quickly look at something, and so we didn't turn on the sound. And that became sort of like the mantra, like no videos with sound, except YouTube, right? And then we all started working from home, and we all started looking for these brain breaks every 15 to 20 minutes, and TikTok emerged, and people started being willing to turn their sound on, and it became this amazing platform that people really wanted to interact with. And what is incredible about TikTok, unlike other platforms, is that you can go viral, you can build an audience without having to play the same games you would on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, where you're really asking people to like and follow you. And that's because the algorithm does a lot of that work. The entire purpose of TikTok is keeping people on TikTok. And the algorithm is very smart. And so if you are into a certain kind of music, it will just start showing you that certain kind of music and performers like that. And it's allowed a lot of people to gain followings. And so you might say, well, hey, Adam, I read this New York Times article by Taylor Lawrence, and it's all about like dancing videos and TikTok houses. Yeah, for a portion of people, a large portion that watch TikTok, that's what they watch. But there are all these amazing communities. There's jazz communities. There's, for us in the drinks business, there's bourbon communities. There's people making amazing like flair cocktails. There's people making traditional like bespoke, classic cocktails. There's people making crazy, beers. Like on the music side, I see jazz, I see classical, I see, really experimental prog rock. Like there's all these communities on the platform, and there are audiences that are finding these people, and it's a really interesting audience to be a part of. That being said, it's also an audience that you have to engage with. So there's not a lot of robust analytic tools yet for TikTok. That's obviously going to come when marketers decide they want to start coming and bringing money. That's when any analytics platform becomes more robust, right? So on the Facebook side compared to Instagram, right, it's because brands are spending more money right now on Facebook than Instagram, and they demand those analytics because they're spending so much money. Right now, because TikTok is still so new, there aren't as many brands yet that are dumping, you know, buckets and buckets of cash, but that is coming very quickly. And then the analytics platform will get better. But so until then, the way to really be good at TikTok is actually engaging with the you know, your listeners on TikTok. Oh, this was amazing, right? I mean, this is a cello player that has gone viral on TikTok. He basically goes all over Arlington, Virginia, where he lives, and he records himself playing cello. And he's gone absolutely viral this summer with hundreds of thousands of views of people watching him play cello. Right? I think that's a really cool thing about the platform. And he didn't go out and recruit those viewers. They came to him because they were interested in music in the first place, and then just started seeing him more and more, and then obviously liked him and followed him. But the algorithm just kept serving up his videos to people. It's important, obviously, in these videos that they be fun and entertaining, and that they feel engaging. But the platform did that for them, and it's still really a wide open space. So if you're a presenter right now, if you're a performer, this is a really fun place for you to think about playing. I want to show you an example of another cellist. So the cellist I'm going to show you now, she's also become very famous on TikTok. She's based in LA. She's a Juilliard graduate. And she's gone viral as well on TikTok and built a huge following of people who want to buy her, you know, her next albums, want to, you know, really follow her and support her because they love what she does for them on TikTok. So this is the performer. Her handle's Marzicello. I want you to see two things. One, I'm going to play her video for you. I'm going to play two of her videos so you can see what she does on the platform, but also you see how much she's interacting with the people who are commenting, right? Like, so this is her, literally, you're about to watch a practice video that she posted, her warm-up. And as she's posting the warm-up, you see people are saying, "Why? I can't believe you're up so early. You're so dedicated," right? And she's commenting back and forth to these people. People are saying they can't wait to go to her concert, right? So she's building an audience for herself just by daily uploading a video of herself doing what she's already doing in her practice room. Right, so again, I think you get the idea here, right? She just uploaded a warm-up video, but there were people on the platform that wanted to hear her perform. This is another one. So, you know, obviously sometimes it's just her hands, right, showing how she's moving on the instrument. Other times she is showing herself. So this is the biggest one that went crazy viral. So again, she's also not scared about only playing traditional classical music. She does play covers of pop songs. This one went so viral that Coldplay actually reached out to her, which is really interesting, right? So she had not been known by the band at all. She covered one of their most popular songs and all of a sudden went viral, and the band reached out, and now she's, you know, working on one of their albums with them, right? So again, it's a really interesting thing that happened. But again, I want you to notice on the right how often she is interacting with the commenters, right? So she is literally commenting back to almost every single comment. Yes, it takes work. That's why we call it social media, but that is what causes her to have a loyal following. So podcasting really quickly. So I like podcasting especially if you're an arts organization. It allows you to build audiences and have conversations with people and sort of give a behind the scenes picture of, artist process and stuff. This is more for the arts presenters than for the artists as my last one. In terms of podcasting, you basically want to use a platform like a Cast, which allows you to upload directly to iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, etc. It's very easy to record. I like a platform called Zencastr, Zencastr, which allows you to have an online studio. It's free right now in the pandemic, so you should use it. And with Zencastr, you can record interviews, you can record, people performing, rehearsing, etc. And then you can upload to Spotify and you can have this podcast and build this audience. To look at those analytics, you would use a platform called Chartable. iTunes does not provide analytics. Apple is notoriously a black box when it comes to analytics for presenters, etc. But a platform like Chartable does its best to guess what those analytics would be, and that's where you can look at everything. And Margaret, you were right. It was a lot to talk about. So it definitely took the full hour and 5 minutes, but that is my presentation.